So while there is still light, I want to do this video, and of course, this being Los Angeles, we have a helicopter, and we're going to let that helicopter fly by. Oh, there it is, flying by. Okay, so look, I want to do this video that to people who are more versed in astrology will seem a lot more basic, but I want to do a video that sort of calls us back together after not only the election, but also some of the astrology that has been in play since the beginning of September. I'm doing this as a kind of a stage-setting video for other videos that are now going to follow, because on November the 13th, the planet Mars goes direct, 13th, 14th, depending on where you are, and that ushers in our next sort of phase of coordinated planetary movement. So we're right on that cusp of things shifting. On the 14th or 15th of November, wherever you are, we have a new moon in Scorpio. So of course there's going to be a new moon in Scorpio video. I also did my first sort of political video the morning of the election on November the 3rd, and that's the last video I did, I think. So of course that's online. So I want to do another one to look at both Biden and Trump's charts and give you my thoughts as we move forward to the next few months. But before I do any of these more detailed, deeper dive videos, let's just come back together and set the stage for where we're at right now. The primary theme for the second half of this year, as I have mentioned many times before, is to facilitate the transition between the new and the old. The old particularly refers to the eclipses that have been occurring in the signs of Cancer and Capricorn. The last of the Cancer eclipses was a solar eclipse in the sign of Cancer, June 21st, 22nd, right at the very, 0 degrees of Cancer, as I recall. And then a month later, there was a new moon. And a solar eclipse, 21st of June, it looks over, or it kind of spreads its wings over about a 6-month period at least. So the next full moon lunar eclipse is actually in the sign of Gemini. So we have eclipses from Cancer, Capricorn moving backwards. Eclipses move backwards to the axis of Gemini and Sagittarius. So we have this kind of relay race handoff occurring in the second half of 2020. A solar eclipse in Cancer, a lunar eclipse, which tends to close out or bring into focus or bring to culmination some of the energies set forth by the solar eclipse, and thematically links sort of the Cancer-Capricorn axis with the Sagittarius-Gemini axis. The lunar eclipse is on November the 30th. Now, some people would argue that the solar eclipse and what it started off actually closes at the end of December with the full moon in Cancer, which is not an eclipse. The eclipses in Cancer are done for another 17, 18 years, 19 years. But the bottom line is there's this handoff that is occurring between the eclipses in Cancer, Capricorn, which have been in place since the middle of July 2018. And depending on who you talk to, they remain active, even though there's a relay race going on till the end of this year, or November 30th at least. The new set of energies came into play around April the 4th of this year with a lunar eclipse in Sagittarius on June the 4th, as I recall. That was the first of the Sagittarius-Gemini eclipses. And the next eclipse on that axis is this November 30th lunar eclipse, full moon lunar eclipse in Gemini, and then a new moon solar eclipse to really get things started in a much more earnest way on this eclipse cycle around December the 14th. The solar eclipse being a new moon, and it really sort of sets into motion. The first of the new moon solar eclipses really sets into motion a much more directed approach to tackling whatever these eclipses are bringing, whatever change, whatever metamorphosis, whatever learning, whatever growth, whatever letting go. The two lunar eclipses that have happened so far, June the 4th and November the 30th, are nevertheless announcements and important in their own right. Okay. So we have this period of transition, and the transition really got going at the end of June, beginning of July of 2020, when Mars moved into Aries, not just for 45 days, as Mars tends to do in each sign, but for 6 months, because Mars almost went through Aries went retrograde, is currently technically retrograde, but really very, very still stationary, and goes direct on November the 13th in a few days' time. And Mars is going to be now in Aries till the beginning of January. So Mars does a full sweep across of Aries one more time. So instead of 45 days in one sign, 6 months in one sign. And Mars's purpose in the second half of this year has really been to be a catalyst, sort of a catalyst. You know, it's as if on stage, we're on stage and someone comes on and pulls on a curtain manually or pulls it open manually. It's as if Mars is this kind of herald to the planet of drive, the planet of action, the planet of activity, to welcome in, to lead us into this new set of energies and this new set of eclipses. Mars went retrograde around September the 8th or September the 12th or something, September the 8th, I think, and then of course goes direct on November the 13th. And during that time, certainly our vitality has been low, but there's been a need, the second half of 2020, there's a need to finish up old tasks with a sense of urgency and to usher in the new. And Mars's period during this time has been about ushering the new. Now, when it comes to finishing up old tasks, at the end of June, Saturn, which had temporarily moved into Aquarius, moved back into Capricorn, where he has been. So interesting to think about Saturn in terms of gender all of a sudden, where he has been residing with or transiting the sign of Capricorn with Jupiter and Pluto. And Jupiter and Saturn are moving through Capricorn, through the final degrees of Capricorn, and leave Capricorn and move into Aquarius for good, for about 28 years as far as Saturn is concerned, for 12 to 13 years as far as Jupiter is concerned, on December 17th and December 19th. December 17th, Saturn moves into Aquarius. December 19th, Jupiter moves into Aquarius. December 22nd, they have what is referred to as a grand conjunction. The purpose of, on November the 11th, so a couple of days ago, Jupiter and Pluto conjuncted for the third time, and the Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions for me have been clearly linked to an increase in COVID cases. Jupiter and Saturn are conjuncting. I've done a video called Wrecking Ball. You'll see it on my video list on the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. Feel free to take a look at that. The Jupiter-Saturn conjunction occurs on the 21st. This is a new energy, but Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto have certainly, in terms of their timing and their meeting up, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto conjuncted in the beginning of 2020. Jupiter, Pluto conjuncted 3 times in 2020. Saturn and Jupiter conjunct now December 21st of 2020, and these conjunctions and the timing of these conjunctions very much linked to some of the social and political upheavals, but especially, remarkably, with the rise of either the presence of COVID or the increase of COVID cases this year. What the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction brings in this regard, I'll post a video on that in the next few weeks around my thoughts around where that is taking us. But certainly, when planets like Saturn and Jupiter go through the final degrees of a sign, Saturn has been in Capricorn since December 2017, Jupiter since December 2019. They are urging us. The last of the eclipses in Capricorn occurred around July the 4th, July the 5th of this year. So this idea of, and the Capricorn eclipses were eclipses of release, very complex and complicated energies in the sign of Capricorn for a few years. I've referred to it as a forest fire, wherever it is that the sign of Capricorn is in your chart. Whatever it stands for, immense transformation, learning about patterns and boundaries and self-defeating beliefs and behaviors, and also going through a path with Jupiter's transit there, endings and new beginnings, ending of a 12-year cycle, start of a 12-year cycle. Pluto's presence here for a while, uncompromising transformation. So all of that, when Jupiter and Saturn move through the final degrees of a sign and complete their transits, they really demand lesson learning and change in this sign. It's sort of a culmination, a distillation, a pure aggression, assertion, incorporation of the lessons that have been required of us. And so this idea of letting go and completing old tasks, old issues related to the Cancer Capricorn axis, and leaning into the Gemini Sagittarius axis, when with Mars acting as a catalyst to move us forward, currently retrograde, soon to go direct. You know, you've heard me give this introduction tons of times, but I really want to bring you down to this now, because since September the 8th, since Mars went retrograde, there's been a greater emphasis on finishing up the old tasks. Now as Mars goes direct, as I've warned you, after about November the 15th, we're in a period of immense forward movement. We have hardly any retrograde planets of note. We have no retrograde planets of note as far as I'm concerned after November 15th. I know that Neptune is retrograde, Chiron is retrograde, Uranus is retrograde. They'll continue to do their work, and during this time they will go direct. We have been waiting for forward movement for a lot of people this time period. Since the beginning of September has been like treading water, and while a certain amount of forward movement of July and August, we kind of needed a break to adjust to where things were going. Now things are really going to move forward in that direction. It's like the roller coaster starts to move downhill, and many of us are going to find this a typically exciting, necessary, but also in its own way frustrating experience. You know, sort of it's the human condition to be frustrated. We're frustrated when planets are retrograde and we can't get anything done. We're frustrated when planets move forward in fated ways because they contain an element of surprise that we don't necessarily want to deal with. So we are at that point, November the 15th, when things start to shift and move forward inexorably and usher in a new set of energies. However, Venus in Libra, strong in Libra, rules Libra, typically a wonderful transit, and in many ways it still is. That has not changed. But Venus is challenged by, has been challenged by oppositions to Mars in Aries and Chiron in Aries, and is just getting ready to square Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter. I should say Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn in that order between now and November the 19th. So relationship and financial issues and opportunities trying to bring in a certain amount of harmony are going to be challenged by, and have been challenged by, lingering issues that require attention and completion for the past 2.5 years. It's not, so even though November the 15th, and I say 15th, it should be 13th when Mars goes direct, but you know, that first week between November the 13th and the November 14th Scorpio new moon, and I would say till about November the 22nd, things are still adjusting to that forward movement. After the 22nd, around Thanksgiving, it's just like, boom, we're on our way. So the two things that are stopping us from hurtling forward around November the 15th are the fact that Venus, the planet of relationships and money and opportunities, and a desire to create peace and understanding, new contracts, new agreements, lessons, learnings, healing, is whatever that desire is. There are past issues that are still coming up for re-examination and completion. So she's not going to really have the easiest of times as she, there's still tension in the air. There's still tension in the air till November 19th, November 20th at least. And after that, we just get going. Strangely enough, Scorpio as a sign is better placed with Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto. And, you know, it's a little bit inverted. We look at the Libra transits to usher in fall and bring in a sense of balance, and the Scorpio transits to challenge us. And the Scorpio transits still are challenging us, but there's room for opportunity. The lunations, the full moon conjunct Uranus we just had at the end of October, which brought in a sense of liberation. The new moon in Scorpio, which sextiles Saturn. Then the two eclipses on November 30th and December 14th, all are all of a sudden more harmoniously placed. So it's as if the lunations are helping to usher in a new sense of more balanced and more progressive and more again, we are moving from the place where this tussle and this churn between old issues and new issues that are coming in are unified in the completion of the old and the bringing in of the new. So whether it is Venus's oppositions to Mars and Chiron and squares with Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, whether it is Mars going direct, whether it is Mercury re-entering Scorpio now that it is direct a couple of days ago and then going to be here through the month of November, till about December the 22nd, I should say. Through the month of November, whether it is Jupiter and Pluto conjunct, and now Jupiter and Saturn planning to move through Capricorn and conjunct in Aquarius, all the astrology is now poised for a certain kind of forward movement. The only backward-looking transit right now in an intense way are these Venus squares, but they last till November 19th for another week and a half. Okay, that's the last of this relationship pull. Wow, it's starting to get dark. So I wanted to just do this video just to kind of bring you to a kind of ground zero after the election, and as we prepare to move forward after November the 13th technically, but I would say November 15th and especially November 22nd. I wanted this to kind of be an overture. Oh, thankfully the lights have come on. I wanted this video to be a bit of an overture to the next set of videos that are going to be coming on board, just to remind you of where we are and have been in the second half of 2020. Finishing up energies that have been in place since December 2017, even stronger since middle of July 2018. Finish that up by the end of this year, move in a new direction, incorporate a new set of challenges and areas of growth, and a new set of areas to release in growth in Gemini, release in Sagittarius, starting April the 4th of this year, becomes more present, increasingly more present. Mars' presence in Aries, the presence of planet in Scorpio, Venus' squares, really now starting to demand that we move forward, and a lot of this forward movement we're simply not going to be able to avoid. Okay, so thanks for bearing with me for these past 15-17 minutes just to get on the same page, and we'll start to break down each of these transits and others in future videos. If you found this video helpful, useful, feel free to share it, comment on it, like it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button so you're notified whenever I do new videos. My contact information is in the subject area below. You can reach out to me to inquire about rates for readings, or rates to make you an easy-to-read version of your chart that'll tell you which signs and which houses and what those houses stand for, so you can follow along my videos in a more personalized way. Do not send me your birth date and birth time and birth location until you actually get the rate information from me and are comfortable with moving forward. That way I don't have your personal information sitting in my email box, and then if you want to move forward, we can take it from there. Okay, we'll leave it at that, and on to more videos. Take care.